All right, this is JPEG to RAW photo review show number 19, and we're doing part 2 of the October images. And before we get started, I want to talk about the contest we're doing right now, because this one's a special one. I know we're doing October. We'll be doing November review here very shortly, but we're actually in the December time frame, and December for us is always the annual best of the year contest. So right now, both the beginners group and the regulars group are doing the best of contest. So it's the best image you took any time in the year of 2017. You post that one, and if you entered during the year, so there's a little twist, and all the rules are on the website. But if you entered during the year, you can re-enter those images in the contest, and you can re-edit them too. Yep. So you can, if you heard some of the feedback from AD, and there's some tweaks that he mentioned, you can do those edits, re-enter those images, and one additional. If you never entered at all during the year, then you can only enter the one image that you would enter. But you could enter any ones that you've entered before. So go over to jpegtoraw.com, and then up, let's see if I can find my mouse, up here, photo contest, go down to photo contest entry. That's one way to enter, but the easiest way is to go over to the JPEG to RAW Facebook group. Just go over there, and at the very top of the page is the album for entering this month. That's both in the beginners group, and there's also a similar thing in the regulars group. So either way, go over there and enter. Make sure you get in before the end of December, and then there's prizes.
Yeah, Mike, talk about the important stuff, man.
There are prizes. So normally the prize, let me get us back to AD and I. Normally the prize is just your images at the top of our Facebook groups. We do a blog post about it, and we put it on our Facebook page.
And that's huge, because you get a lot of exposure from that.
Yes. Yeah, you're up there the whole month. You're up there for a whole month. So there's some exposure there. But this month, in addition to that, there's also other prizes we're doing. And AD has been working with us a lot on a special software that was recently released for Windows. And I think we'll do an edit tonight using that software. And that is MacFun Luminar. Or now it's called Skylum, right?
Skylum. Yeah, they want to make sure everybody tells it's Loom for Luminar. Yeah, Skylum software. Yep.
So they have been gracious enough to give us a copy of that we can give away to the to who we pick for this. I think we haven't decided it's going to be the winner or somebody else. I don't. We'll talk about that. But that is going to be one of the main prizes there. That software. It is not something you have to subscribe to. So after a year, it's not going to run out. Future updates, that you look on the website for what the rules are on future updates. But there's some big ones coming. Some big ones coming.
The digital asset manager is coming for Luminar, and so the winner, or whoever we pick, or however it ends up being, here's the thing: you got to enter in order for a chance to win. Doesn't matter if it's the winning photo or how we decide we end up doing it, but that's the thing. So make sure you get your photos in like Mike said. But yeah, the digital asset manager is coming to Luminar. You will be included in that update. So you're going to get hopefully a Lightroom killer. That's what we're hoping for. So.
Awesome. Yep. So that one, and AD, you're giving away 2 items from your store, right? Your recently revamped store.
Yes, I'm giving away 2 all-in-one packages valued at about $119 a piece. So they're going to include 2 packages that you get everything in my store. And I just released a big preset package for Luminar of LUT files, LUT files, lookup tables. They actually mirror all of my Lightroom presets. So if you're a Lightroom user and you end up using Luminar, you can now get those same looks that I developed. 46 of them come in this pack. That you're going to get that. I just released Analog Effects, which is all the cool kind of filters with texture overlays. And there's brush files in there for Photoshop. There's texture packs in there for Luminar, or for any software, really. So you're going to get it all, essentially. And there's going to be like 2 more preset packs that are going to be available before we give this away in January, because I've got some new releases coming. So they'll be in there as well. So it'll actually be worth probably more than $119.
Wow, that's awesome. So 2 of those, right?
Yeah, 2 of them.
Yep. And there may be more coming. I'm not going to let AD just be the only supplier of awards here. So I'm sure there's going to be something else coming. Still working on what that's going to be. But at least now there's 3 items that are coming. Some big items there. So good. So make sure you get in before the end of December. All right. So now are we ready to get started on the images?
Yeah, I think so. Let's roll.
Yep.
Sure.
We're continuing with our new format of, you can see the change is different here with the layout, but we're also going to go through these a little bit quicker and try and keep this around 30 minutes. So let's get started with the first image up is this one from Milind, our good friend Milind.
Yeah, Milind Mladenov. Really awesome photo. I mean, he's here for every contest. He has moved. Have you noticed, Mike? I think he moved from like more of the beginners stuff into the regular now on a regular basis, which is nice to see. Let's see here. I'm just reading the description real quick. It says that the nature made quite a spectacle this evening. The sky was burning with those red and orange and yellow colors. And, he probably didn't do much processing. We had a couple of nights where, wow, the skies this late I would say more in the autumn were just fantastic. I saw some photos. I'm like, man, I wish I was out those nights and capturing skies because they looked really unbelievable. It says here that this is 11 vertical shots, and the idea was to capture more of the clouds and the colors in the sky. He took it on a tripod, so on and so forth. And he also did there were some bushes on the left side that were causing a problem. I can kind of see his edit on the left side. And I think Milind, if you just crop that, it would have been fine because we really get the idea with the colors. I love the tree on the right. I think I would have liked to seen you maybe highlight some of the accent light that's on that tree because I can see some of that orange light on the tree. It would have been nice if maybe an adjustment brush on there and just kind of brought that out a little bit. I won't comment on the watermark and where it's positioned. It's like right there.
That was one of my comments. I like the lower right-hand corner or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Up there in the tree.
Hey, just a little tip to everybody out there. Watermarks are great for advertising. They do not protect your image. So if you put them somewhere on your image, try to make them a little inconspicuous so that they don't interfere with the beauty of the image. And if you're watermarking your images thinking, I'm going to protect them, then I got some bad news for you. They just don't. I can remove any watermark on any photo, no matter where it is, in less than 10 or 15 seconds, and you'd never even know it was there. And anybody who's good at it could do it as well, and who wants your photo that bad. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't worry about it. But put your name on there if you want to. That's fine. You're on a show. You can get it on there somewhere. I much rather see somebody just print their name lightly in the photo if they want to, or I've seen people put it in a line where you barely see it, and then if they download the image or something, you can see it then with your website, so we can go see more of your images, that sort of thing. But signing your image should be in the lower corner if you're signing them, and just make it a little bit more inconspicuous.
You can even add maybe like your web, whatever link you want somebody to go to. If they see your image, if you want them to go to your web page or something, you can add that there too if you wanted.
Yeah,
but don't make it as obvious.
Right.
Like
so I wanted to say Milind is definitely, he listens, he watches the show, he takes all of the information to heart, and it shows in this image. He's got a nice wide image. He isn't letting the foreground push that sunset around. We're not seeing too much foreground. In fact, when you look at this, really the sun really just, it takes you into that sky, and we don't get too much competing in the image. And that's one of the things that we've preached over and over about our composition, right? And so we see a lot of beautiful photos, but the composition's a little lacking in the storytelling, whether something's competing or you have multiple subjects or, there's too much foreground noise or that sort of thing. I think he did a good job here of keeping the foreground in check and letting that sky really speak. And that was his goal, right? He said in the paragraph there, he said underneath the photo that, it was the sky that got him
Right.
to pull the trigger. And I think that was a goal met. So nice work, Milind. As always, man, just keep submitting because it's getting better and better. Every photo I see from you gets better. So,
Yep. Good job.
yeah.
All right. Up next is this image from Amber. I would say her last. I mess up her last name every time. Salat.
Well, I'm telling you, we're going to schedule, Mike. What you're going to win for this year is you're going to win a hangout with Amber, and we're going to get you on her last name.
Amber.
Amber S. Amber S.
Amber S.
So she's a long time submitter of photos as well, and it's great. And boy, has she grown from the first day of submitting photos. And I think a special part of like the year-end show is we got to go dig up like the first photo that people submit and the photos they're submitting now, because there's a big difference.
I think so.
Yeah. And this photo is a great example. She says here it was the start of a yawn. She took it. I took it because he's mine. He has many faces. Meaning the boy is hers. Yeah. And this just happens to be one of them. She wished she had light in his eyes. She didn't have her reflector with him. You know what, Amber? I got to say, I don't think there's anything that I would change with this image. I think this is just a great. I love the expression on his face, whether it was yawning or not. It just kind of looks like, that I'm a 13 or 14 or 12-year-old kid giving you the look of, I got you, like it's just that look, right, that they have where they know the world's in the bag, just like we all thought when we were that age. So I think she caught that moment, even if it was a yawn. I don't really care. She used a 1.4 lens here, a great portrait lens. If you guys are looking to really get better at portrait photography, go buy a 50 millimeter 1.4. They're not that expensive. They will make you move around. Mike, we've said this before about people ask, well, what lens would you buy? Would you buy this or that? The 50 1.4 is such a good teaching lens, especially if you refuse to take it off your camera. Mm-hmm. It can teach you about getting the focal plane right. It can teach you about moving and it can teach you about aperture and how aperture will change over, between f1.4, where this nice shallow depth of field here, moving to an f22, where you'd get much more in focus. So I think that she did great by using that lens, obviously, for a portrait. And this is a wonderful photo. I mean, excellent.
And I love the conversion of black and white. She does a lot of her work in black and white. I like that.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
I have the 1.8. I don't have the 1.4. I've debated that, and I would like to have a 1.4.
Me too. I have a 1.6, which is weird, right? But but that's a Lens Baby lens, which I really like a lot, and it's beautiful for portraits. It's such a nice. It's the soft, the Velvia 56. It's a beautiful lens. But I do miss. I had a 51.4, and I do miss it. I really do, because it's or a 51.2. I mean, my gosh. Yeah, but when you go there, just know, if you're on a crop sensor, you'll have an easier go of it. But when you move to a full frame and a 51.4, because see, a 51.4 on a crop sensor is more like a 75. Mm-hmm. It's not, or 65. 65?
No, it's 75. You're right.
Yeah, 75. Yeah. And so you're getting the focal plane right is a little easier on a crop sensor, but when you move to a full frame sensor, and that's 50 millimeters, getting that focus plane, because at 1.4 it's very thin. It's maybe a half an inch if you're lucky, that you've got to play with, and even breathing while you're shooting can cause it to go out of focus.
Right.
And that's why it's a great practice lens. Because you'll get the full frame home and you look at those photos you thought were in focus, or your camera thought were in focus, and you'll be like, oh no, missed it by that much. Yeah, just that much.
In the post show, I'll tell you about a mistake I made this weekend.
All right,
semi-related to that.
Yeah, and Jan out there, Jan, thank you so much for joining us out there in YouTube chat land. She says she loves the dimple in the chin. I think that's awesome too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a great look. He's got his nose kind of twerked over to the side. It's just awesome. I like this photo the minute I saw it.
Yeah, me too. All right, up next is, let me get this image.
This might be someone who was only submitted one other time, I think.
Jeff?
Yeah, I don't remember too many from Jeff.
Yeah, I don't remember too many from Jeff either, but I think I remember talking about him before, though, because I mispronounced his last name. So I know this isn't his first time.
Yeah. So sunrises and sunsets in West Texas can be pretty dramatic. I mean, I could have called the location just from you see the derricks. Yeah, you see the derricks everywhere down there. You see, he laid on the ground to exaggerate the height of the pumping unit. Yeah, because these things, you can see the ladder, so you kind of get an idea how big it is. But I think that was a good idea. I kind of like that too. Actually, all of these images tonight, there's just little things that I'm digging for stuff because these are all great images. It says here that in the distance there was a light rain falling. Above the clouds were rolling and changing. Yet those are very unique clouds. And if you're out in the middle of a field somewhere and you see those clouds, you should be close to your vehicle because those clouds usually mean either really tough weather is coming or it just passed, because those are mammalus clouds. I think that's how they're pronounced, or mammalus clouds or whatever. But they're usually signifying really crazy weather, and they're very, very popular down in the nice flatlands of Texas or across Kansas. We've even had them here on the East Coast. I've gotten a chance to take a few photos of them. They're really spectacular. So that's what those are. So you caught a cool moment there. I can kind of see the rain through the sun in the background. I will say that the image has quite a bit of noise to it, and I'm not sure. It says here it was ISO 200 shot at f8. So f8
in 1/80th of a second. Yeah.
In 1/80th of a second handheld, which is fine. I don't know what the lens was.
I don't either. You see what he edited in the right?
Yeah. And so my question is I think probably what happened here, and I'm just going to go out on a limb, but generally with sunset images with a foreground piece right here, it's almost a shout out for HDR, because even with a camera that's got a pretty good, that has a pretty good dynamic range, that's still really a lot of darkness to pull out. And it doesn't matter what software you use. This comes down to the camera itself. I don't know what camera he used, but I'd even venture to say on a D800, and if you're not shooting anything like other than a D850 or the Sony, the A7S II, that has like crazy good dynamic range and shoots in the dark pretty much. Both of those cameras do. I would really suggest an image like this that's 3 brackets so that you can get rid of some of that noise. And I don't know if it was shot in brackets or if it was a single. I don't think Jeff is out there tonight.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
I wonder too if he tried to push some of the exposure in those clouds, and that's what caused the.
Well, I think that's probably what happened. And like I said, it doesn't matter really the software. That's a pretty tough thing to do. I know DxO, their Optic Pro has a pretty good noise reduction plugin in it, and it can get rid of a lot of noise even in images that you're really pushing it on. But this, I'm going to almost guarantee, for the amount of brightness that I'm seeing in the background and how much there is in the foreground, that it probably was just an exposure that was pushed a little hard.
Right.
And that's where the noise is coming from. You got to be careful with that, because a nice image like this, even though I will say one thing I want to mention about this image is that it's very, it's going to appeal to a specific crowd. Now, I've got a friend who is a safety inspector for gas and oil rigs, and she absolutely loves machinery. Anytime she sees stuff like this, she'll buy it. So you got to watch out, Jeff, for folks like her are going to come along and they're going to say, man, I want that image. It's awesome. And if they want to print it large and you've got noise in it, that's going to come out in the print, and then they're going to be disappointed when they get that noise. And I think you just got to be careful.
And I think he could have let those clouds be a little darker. He didn't have to push them quite that hard.
Yeah, it's hard to say without seeing the raw file. Yeah, it's tough to say, but you could be absolutely right there in that was, the whole exposure slider was brought up quite a bit with the shadows to get that sky that bright.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a good chance there that that's all that was needed, is just to shoot a couple brackets or maybe not push it quite as hard. So.
All right. Well, thanks,
It's a
Jeff.
cool image.
Look forward to seeing more from Jeff.
Absolutely.
All right. Up next is this one from Jason Clark.
Yay. Buffaloes.
And I believe, if I remember right, I don't have my thing up where I can look at it. Jason was the winner from last show of something from your store.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We mentioned his image, this image we're looking at right here, briefly at the end of that show. And we mentioned we'll talk about this one more for this show.
Yeah.
So we're here now with this show.
Awesome. Well, it says that he had the opportunity to visit Wichita Mountain Wildlife Refuge. And, he's out there, obviously, shooting buffalo. It says that he was disappointed with the shots right out of the camera. There was no texture in the sky. There was a storm the night before, robbed him of many clouds, so on and so forth. So he nabbed a textured shot of a weathered piece of wood from a previous weekend, and he decided to, do a composite and kind of bring in some extra stuff into the image for a sense of history and heritage surrounding American bison. So I kind of get that. I think that I would have liked it maybe a little bit more with less of the wood at the top, where and of course I can't point to. I could point to my screen. You guys wouldn't see what's going on. But so there, like along the top of the image where there's some paint there or some fibers or whatever it is hanging down, that's kind of a distraction because it's a bright spot in the texture. And I think that if you would have stretched the texture out and made it wood for the whole image, and then that he's got kind of the wood along the bottom that's another looks like
Different
another
wood,
board. Yeah. I think that blends well down there. I mean, I kind of get what he's going for here. I also think too, though, that I've seen there's something to be said for blank space. Now, we always like to get sunsets. We always like to get skies that are amazing. But if you think about this image of the young buffalo, I'm trying to peel away everything that's here and go back to the tree and the buffalo and the grass. The entire time I was in Yellowstone, I was kind of chomping at the bit to get one buffalo and one other object in a field by itself. That was like my goal, right? And it was impossible to get it. I mean, there's always 5 other buffalo, 60 cars, whatever. And so I'm wondering, like, maybe you wait a little bit longer, let that buffalo get a little bit farther away from that tree, pull back the image a little bit, and here you've got a foreground of buffalo in a tree. You don't have competing skies, all of that, and then you go for that vintage kind of look without the double exposure, without a bunch of stuff all going on at once, or try to shake it up a little bit. And what I've seen before other folks do that kind of works is you have 2 buffalo in the image, 2 full buffalo. So it's kind of like they're there, like people looking at it are going to be like, well, which one's the subject here? Is it the small buffalo or the big buffalo? Or, they're kind of competing. Mm-hmm. What about blowing up the big buffalo so it's just like the buffalo's head, and overlaying that in the image so that it's kind of, you see the eye of the buffalo, which is really, like the if you ever look buffalo in the eye when they look at you, they look very somber and sad, and you can almost get a whole story behind their eye in the way that they look. And I just wonder if maybe mixing that composition up a little bit. I like the idea. I think he's on the right track. I think it's just keep going, man. Jason, don't give up here. This kind of midstream, you're on a good thing, and just keep pushing it until you can see the power of the image really come out. I don't think it's quite there yet. That's just, my feelings. I think it would have been more powerful, just a tree and the lone buffalo in the grass with no texturing or anything, and then maybe done in a sepia tone or, like my Java preset, which does like kind of a black and white, but it's more of a coffee stained black and white. Something to that effect would have been more powerful. And then if you're going to do the compositing thing with the kind of, dual exposure or whatever, kind of be thinking about things that are competing with each other and make sure they support, not compete. So.
Very good. Okay.
Cool.
I think it's good that he's trying to do something different. This was completely different than all the other images. I'm not a huge fan of the double exposure type things like this. It gives me flashbacks to high school when you had the portrait you did with all the different angles that they had on you. It was done very bad back then, in my opinion. His is better than that, but I like that he's trying something different.
Yeah, and we've got people in the group too that regularly display outside of the box images that you might not like them, but keep in mind that through their experimentation, they're getting more creative and getting better at what they're doing all the time. So it is very important for everybody out there to trial and error it, make mistakes, just get outside your box, because you're not going to learn anything in your box other than that you're in a box. So I've already solved that one for you. That's all you're going to learn.
Right. Because what we don't want is just the same image over and over again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's the whole thing. You want diversity, and that's.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with this image at all. It's just, I'm just giving you creative feedback. Jason's out there in chat right now. Jason, you're very welcome for the feedback, man. Anytime you want to reach out, by all means, reach out. I'm always available. Mike will tell you. And so, I love what you're doing. Just keep experimenting. I think you're, like I said, on the right track. It's a good look. It just needs to kind of make sure your subjects are supporting each other, and you pick 1 star out of there, and don't give me 5 or 6 stars, because people get very confused very easily these days. So, but awesome stuff all the way around, man.
All right, last one up is this one from Evan Jones.
Evan Jones from rusticlens.com. So, I only know that because I built his website for him.
Oh, okay. So, where are you seeing that? I don't see that.
Yeah, that isn't even on there, man. What's going on? Evan was actually, he was one of my students in the Arcanum. So we were working on websites, though. We didn't work on photos. We were working on building websites and doing all that stuff and learning about revenue streams and all the things that we talk about there over on the creators.com thing. So, and Evan is a writer for travelobscura.com with me as well. So I'm glad to see him submitting images. He is very much a learning photographer, and he is an amazing historian. We went out to Bannock State Park out in I just happen to have the brochure right here that says Bannock. I put it in frame there. This is a ghost town. It's a real ghost town, not a fake one, not one of those roadside attraction thingies. It's a real ghost town out in Montana, and it's kind of known for Hangman's Gulch. That's what a lot of people know it for. Hey, Robert, I see you out there in Facebook, man. Robert Keller checking in. So he, while we were out there, Evan met up with my group, and he knew all of the history, all of the guys' names, like where the lynchings went on, where the gunfights went on. I mean, this guy's like a walking like encyclopedia, and it was so amazing. And he was so good at it. And he tells stories and does these wonderfully amazing historical trips. This is one of them. He went to Sumter Valley Railroad in Oregon. He's got some really cool pictures from this. And he wanted to get some good old steam train shots, he says. So he took this one of the engineer. And he liked the vintage look and the steam coming out of the image of the engine, partially obscuring him. So yeah, I kind of like the angle of this too. I think that's pretty cool with all the steam going on. This is the image that I picked to edit. Right now, Evan's going, "Oh man, not my image, man, not my image." So he processed this with a vintage feel for a feeling of nostalgia. I think he hit all of that stuff right on the mark. The glaring thing in this image, though, is the dark spot on the right. And it's so glaring that it constantly pulls me off the subject matter, which is the guy in the train. I mean, he's like the guy leaning out in that red shirt is kind of right because he put him in the thirds and everything, but then he's got a competing dark spot at the front of this train. So I want to do a quick edit for you, Mike, and share my screen. I've got it all loaded up here, and let me just share out with you that. We'll go ahead and start it right about now. So you should be seeing that.
Yep.
And they've lost Mike's screen. All right, so Mike sees what's going on. All right.
I see.
So super easy edit here, Evan, just to make that area of the screen kind of blend in a little bit. All I'm going to do is I'm in Luminar here. I'm going to add a filter on, which is called the develop filter, which is just like you see it in Lightroom or any of these other programs that are out there. And all it is just exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, blacks, clarity, and temperature control. But where I'm going to do this a little different is I'm actually going to add a mask, and I'm going to put in a gradient mask really quick. And I'm just going to draw it out like a simple gradient mask right across that line right here. And I know Evan already knows how to do this. I'm just kind of demonstrating for effect here. I'm just going to bring up the exposure level here a few stops. Now it's going to get crazy because it's not going to look right. It's actually going to start to change tone and everything, which is not what I want it to do. So you can see it started getting a little bit more yellow now, and it's moving away from this tone that he has. I'm going to bump the clarity just a hair, just to kind of bring back in that contrast and look that he has in the rest of the photo. I don't want to go too much because I'll end up bringing the dark spots back in. And then all I'm going to do is move the temperature gauge over here just a little bit, and that's going to retone it to be just like the rest of the image. Now you can kind of fiddle around with it and balance it so that it's nicely balanced. But essentially, it's going to draw the attention off that part of the engine. So let me just, whoops, I don't want to tilt it. I want to move it. Let's move it over just a little bit. So the gradient's nice and smooth there. Now I'm going to show you a before and after so you can kind of get an idea of what the difference is here in the image. And so here's a before. So see how much that really pulls into the dark, because what we want to do is we see there is detail over there. We want to, what's in the dark? What's in there? Right? Mm-hmm. That's not our subject though. That's kind of competing with the guy and his look that he has going on. So if we turn the lights on, we kind of remove all of that. And the image now has all of its detail everywhere still, but the focus is still more on the guy. And I might even darken the guy up just a little bit, just to bring us more over. Then I'd fiddle with this a little bit more and get it to blend more perfect here, get the tones just right. And I probably, if I'm making this suggestion to Evan to do, before you color the photo, it's much easier to make this adjustment before you color the photo and then tone it afterwards. And it'll all the tones will be the same. I'm trying to kind of fix something after everything's been done to it. But you get the idea. Just bringing up the that darkness there, and just keeping it from distracting us. You can almost see if we only looked at one part of this photo. Maybe we take. Let's just turn that off. Let's take everything out of the photo except for him. You can see how much more powerful the image is just looking at him in the steam rather than when we bring in that dark part of the photo over here. So we don't have that darkness kind of in there. And
that crop right there, I like that.
Yeah, the more we reduce though that dark area, the more that it becomes, he becomes the focus. So we would know this is a train. You leave all this part of the stuff in here even and just bring it in a little tighter, and we get more of his expression. Anytime you have people in an image, especially if it's only one person and our focus is supposed to be on them, get in tight, get in close. I might even dare, I hate to do this to Evan, but I might even dare to pull out the old crop tool and just say, what happens if we just do that? And just call it a day. Because now it's just the guy. He's kind of looking forward. We know there's the rest of that going on. We've got the name of the train in there if we want that. Or even if you wanted to go, devil's advocate here, if we wanted to move it, like this, so we keep him looking into the frame, which is sometimes important. It kind of cuts off down there. I still go back. I think, Mike, you're right, man. I think it's still a landscapey type image, and cutting out and just leaving this guy in here. Let's just try this. And I love to do these crops because these crops immediately tell you where the power in the image is. Because the minute I hit this, you're going to noticeably say, whoa, okay, all right.
That's it or that isn't it? Yep.
Right. And so you bring that guy in a little closer to you, and now you kind of now I'm starting to get his mood.
Yeah.
Don't you get his mood a little bit with the look on his face? And so, yeah, I just
still know it's a train. Yeah, you still know it's a train.
You definitely know it's a train. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I think it's one of those things that we struggle. We see a lot of this in submissions that come into. I'm gonna go ahead and switch back here. You've got your image. We'll let you go because I know it's switching back and forth. I think we run into it quite a bit with images where we see multiple subjects. So obviously the train's big and it's demanding a lot of attention. But in that, Evan caught this guy doing his job. You know, he's got the cool hat on. He's wearing all the garb. It didn't hit him to really get in there close on that dude and keep the train, you know, pull in the whole train, get the whole train with him in it is fine if I can see the whole train. Because then you've got background, you've got kind of context, all of that. But this was kind of one of those shots that seemed to me like he was torn between the train and the conductor. And this one definitely was like, get on that conductor because this is a cool shot.
The other thing, when you cropped it that tight, there's something there, whatever it was in the frame, that was producing a lot of that steam coming up from the train.
And you see where it's coming from.
Yeah, you definitely see where it's coming from, and that's a little more powerful there too. So I like that last crop.
Yep. For sure, man.
All right, well, that was the last image. Before we go, I want to mention AD's the creators.com over on Patreon. And if you go over there and become a member or a subscriber, what do they call it? My Patreon. If you become a patron. A patron. Become a patron. He has several different categories there. One of them, if you want the basic mentoring, is $35 a month, and there's options for less than that. I'm just going to that right now. Basic mentoring, $35 a month. Full mentoring, $50 a month. And like AD has mentioned before, there's no time commitment. You could do 1 month, 6 months, whatever it is you want. You decide how far you want to go, and you stop anytime you want. And AD is releasing stuff out there on thecreators.com. It's over on patreon.com/thecreators. Go over there and, you know, at least become the lowest level supporter of $1 or think about going a little bit more. $5.
Well, the $1 folks get everything, Mike. Yeah. So, I mean, it's the only thing you don't get is the personal mentoring thing, which, like, for instance, right now we're building a couple of creators where you'll come to me with, say, hey, like, I want to make money at my photography. Here's what I do. How do I get from point A to point B? And we start working on a plan, and we meet once a month. We make goals, and then we help you reach those goals. And so, you know, right now we've got a podcasting thing going on right now where I'm teaching podcasting and how to interview people and how to get in front of the camera and do live streaming and all this kind of stuff like you're seeing us do right now. That's all an essential part of moving your brand along. So I'm teaching, you know, several different people that right now. Janice Sullivan has got a show, a macro photography show going on. And we've got Mary Preston Roberts, who's she wants to do tutorials. So we're starting with that, how to upload to YouTube, how to make a good tutorial, what makes a good tutorial, and what software you need and all that kind of stuff. So that's what the mentoring is. The $35 is you get me once a month. We have a big meeting. You can have contact with me all the time. We have a private channel that you can come and talk about, you know, hey, I ran into this. How do I do this? You have access, you know, I'm like your 24-hour Geek Squad dude, only I actually know what I'm talking about. And then, sorry, Geek Squad guys, but you've let me down. So yeah. And then the $50 one is more like, you get a couple meetings per month. We work a little bit more intensely. But I just tell people, get in there and do the basic one and just see what it's like first. And it's no commitment, like Mike said. You know, it's $1. Right. Try it out, see what you like. And we've got a bunch of different things going on. Plus, it's a suggestion Patreon. So you want to learn something, all you have to do is ask. It's not like for lack of content. I usually make tutorials on demand. So if you say, like, help me with Photoshop and doing this, I'll make a tutorial for you. And then everybody shares that. Everybody learns from it. It's all good. So
awesome. Yep.
Yeah.
So give that a try. Go over there and just at least check it out. Remember you got to December 31st to enter this month's contest. I'll do another post about the awards that we're doing. We mentioned them earlier in the show. And as we add more, I'll add them to that list. But get out there and enter. You can't win anything if you don't enter. And plus, we just want to see your images. We're doing these twice a month now. AD and I will talk later about when the next one is. And we're trying to keep them a little bit shorter. So with that, we can go ahead and wrap this one up. And we'll see you next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.